All right, everybody, welcome back to the Waiver Wire. It is July 15th, 8:40 p.m. I'm joined again with Nick. We're not talking about hoops this time. We're here to talk some football, here to talk some divisions. We're going to start out with the AFC North. You got the division leaders, the Ravens, who were 10-6 last year, the Steelers, who were 9-6-1, the Browns were 7-8-1, and the Bengals were 6-10. Nick, so let's start it off with the Baltimore Ravens. What do you think is in store for them this year?
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens, they surprisingly, I think, at least for me, won the division last year. They decided to cut ties with Joe Flacco and ushered in a new regime led by Lamar Jackson. They locked up Harbaugh for a long term. I think just to start out with the top, I think Harbaugh is one of the most underrated coaches in the NFL. I just think he's the man. I can't believe it was even in a discussion for them to move on from him. But in terms of the guys on the field, I do not expect a repeat in a division championship, and I don't expect them to really even be in the picture because the Browns are bringing in a bunch of new guys. The Steelers are going to reload here, and the Ravens are losing a lot of guys. C.J. Mosley just left. They are going to miss Zadarius Smith, went to the Green Bay Packers. So, and Eric Weddle to the Rams. So I think those are three big hits off their defense. And they did bring in Earl Thomas, which is exciting. But I think the big question mark for everybody is what are we getting from Lamar Jackson? Because that last playoff game was ugly.
Yeah. Hey, what do you think about Lamar Jackson coming out of college?
I liked Lamar. I thought he was a pretty good quarterback. He came out with a bunch of studs. I was and am a Josh Allen guy. I love Josh Allen. I thought that the accuracy concerns are valid but overblown. So he was my number one guy with Rosen, and then Darnold and Baker in the next tier. And then Lamar, I thought it was a good get to get him at the end of the first round, but there's definitely concerns with his arm and some of his personality stuff as well. I didn't really like the fact that he didn't hire an agent and he did everything with his mom. There's nothing wrong with being close with your mom, but once you start a profession, you need to become an adult. You're running a franchise. You can't be going to your mom and asking, how do I do this? What do I do here? And so I didn't really love that, even though I do love the relationship with the mom, but agents are agents for a reason. I think he's a little immature. He has his own special throwing coach that he goes to, and I'm pretty sure they've been like longtime friends. I don't like that. To me, he is unwilling to surround himself with people who are going to give him the bad news like, hey, we got to do this. You're not good at this. And I just wonder when you surround yourself with people that you're comfortable with, how much are they going to criticize you and make you better?
Yeah, you brought up how they lost Mosley and Zadarius Smith, their leading sacker and their leading tackler. How they also lost Terrell Suggs. I'm pretty sure you brought up Weddle, who was another guy who they got shipped off. In came Mark Ingram and Earl Thomas. They're bringing in leadership to a super young roster. The Ravens last year averaged 24 points a game. It's 13th in the league, so scoring wasn't a problem for them. They averaged 222 passing yards a game. That was the 22nd in the league, so that shows that there is some flaws, obviously, passing the ball, and they were second in rush yards. So, yeah, I think a big question mark for Lamar Jackson is, finding his deep ball, knowing if he can throw a deep ball. In reality, they brought in Roberts, Boykins, and Brown, hopefully to help with that. But we'll see, man. I like Lamar Jackson. I thought he was fun to watch. He's a real great dual threat. But it's just if he can manage to get a deep ball and put that in his inventory, then people are going to respect him, and he won't see 8 people in the box against him.
But yeah, anyway, definitely. I think one of the big things for Lamar is you've got to slide, you got to get out of bounds, and you got to try to sit in the pocket a little bit more. I think that hopefully you would hope that RG3 being the backup can.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Teach him a little bit and be like, hey, man, I had a great rookie season. I was going to be the next big thing, and I wasn't willing to slide. I wasn't willing to run out of bounds. I wasn't willing to throw the ball away, and we're 2 knee injuries later, and I'm the backup. So hopefully he can learn a little bit from RG3. He definitely needs to protect himself because he's not a big guy. He
Right.
is very slight and not that tall. So he's got to protect himself
Yeah,
and get.
especially, I mean, for the sake of the Ravens, they need him to be successful, so they need to do everything they can to make him successful because they've made him the face of the franchise easily over. And when you think about the Baltimore Ravens in 2019, it's Lamar Jackson first. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I mean, so we'll follow up with the second team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Man, they were 9-6-1 last year. I thought they had a pretty good year. We definitely dropped the ball on a couple games. We should have made it. We should have won the division. But we dropped the ball too many times. Uh, I think my biggest area of opportunity for them is they need to increase their turnover ratio and get more
Yes.
production from the running back. Our turnover, I said it all year last year. We finished -11, but it seemed like we just constantly we couldn't create a turnover. Our defensive backs would have the ball in both hands and they could not secure the catch. It was super frustrating. Uh, but I mean, we had 52 sacks, so we were super productive there. We had 27 points a game, sixth in the league, 313 passing yards, second in the league. And I guess we need to keep in mind, Antonio Brown's leaving, so that's going to affect that. And we were 31st in the league with rush yards at 90. So we could really improve, I think, rushing the ball, and increasing that turnover ratio will directly affect that. I mean, we averaged 414 yards a game last year, which was fourth in the league. But what do you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers going into 2019?
I think that people are burying them a little too quick. I think the idea that the window of Super Bowl opportunity is closed is a little premature. I think it's closing. I think they're
Mm-hmm.
on the back half of that window of opportunity, but they're my prediction to win this division. I think that getting Lev Bell out and getting AB out is going to be refreshing for this offense. My big X factors on offense for the Steelers is James Washington and Chukwuma Okorafor, who's going to be stepping in as offense tackle. James Washington hopefully stepping in as that second option, and they also signed Moncrief, who should pick up some catches as well with Switzer, who I really like, is kind of a gadget guy.
Yeah, I like him too.
I think that you were right on with the defense. They got to take advantage of getting your hands on the ball. You got to catch it. I don't have the stat in front of me, so people can double check me, but I'm pretty sure the Steelers were the number one team in the NFL last year in drops, interception drops.
Yeah,
So
it wouldn't
they
surprise me at all. It would not
in
surprise me the slightest.
position. Yeah, they are in position. I know that it is something that you can correct. Just being a Bears fan, I know 2 years ago, Kyle Fuller, he dropped cornerback for the Bears, dropped so
Mm-hmm.
many interceptions, and last year he was tied for the league leader in interceptions. So it is something you can fix.
I almost
Guys,
feel like it's a mental thing too. The majority of it, you've already made it to the league. You've got the talent. It's just like you just got to secure the catch. You know what I mean?
yeah, trust in yourself for sure. I love their defensive front. I love Hayward and Tuitt
Yeah.
and TJ Watt. They are studs. I think Mark Barron was a very under the radar addition.
Mm-hmm.
And the first round pick, Devin Bush, is
a
just
monster.
a Pittsburgh Steeler, man. There's
Yeah.
just nobody who is a better fit to be a Steeler than Devin Bush. He's not going to do anything crazy, but he's just going to fill the gaps. He's going to make tackles. He's going to run sideline to sideline. He's a dog, and I think he's going to be the leader of that team, which really felt like a bunch of talented defensive players without a leader. And hopefully Devin Bush can fill that. I think he can.
Especially, I mean, when Shazier went down, it definitely changed the whole dynamic and the whole. I guess you could almost say the culture of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. He's like my favorite player, and it was crushing to see him go down. But anyways, I think their offseason, they nailed it. Like I think bringing in Mark Barron was awesome. Steven Nelson, I think, was another underrated pickup. And then drafting Devin Bush, you know what I mean? He's a monster, and it's like I think we addressed all of. I don't want to say all of our needs because we have a couple, but we did the best to the best of our ability. We covered what we could with some really solid players. With Antonio Brown gone now, that's 158 targets gone, and they got to go somewhere. We've drafted Deontay Johnson, who in the open field he's pretty shifty.
Yeah.
I like James Washington a lot. He can make combat catches. He's a real tough guy out there. Switzer's another one who you brought up I really like, but I think Moncrief really will be effective this year. He's played with Jacoby Brissett and Blake Bortles, and I mean he had Andrew Luck for like 6 games, and that's it in his whole career. And
Yeah.
I like what I've seen out of him in the past. Um, the one guy I'd say who's kind of like, I guess you could say the X factor almost, who I really do believe will be one of the primary receivers on our team is Vance McDonald. The guy was just a machine last year. Most of the targets went to Jesse James, and he still had more receiving yards. Yeah, he still had more receiving yards than Jesse James did. He just seemed like he was constantly just coming down with the ball. It was a lot of fun to watch him play.
Rest in peace, Chris Conti.
Yeah, so
Stiff arms to the ground.
right. And yeah, I do think a lot of people are counting the Steelers out, and I really hope the Steelers use that narrative of underdog to like kind of motivate them into every game. Where like, look, people are almost laughing at the fact that some people may consider us a contender. You know what I mean? Everybody's got the Browns like in stone. You know, so speaking of the Browns, we'll move on to them. They were 7-8-1 last year. Baker Mayfield went off for them. Man, what did you think about the Cleveland Browns?
I'm just gonna let everyone know right off the bat, I can't stand Baker Mayfield. I do not like him at all, but he can spin the football. Dude can throw it. I think he is an absolute jackass. I think he's super insecure. I think that it'll be interesting to see him as a leader because I think he's the type of guy, he's a rah-rah guy, where if you're winning, he's a lot of fun to be around. But I want to see how he handles when they start losing because it's the NFL. It's not
And
Oklahoma.
he's got Odell Beckham in his ear too.
Yeah, and I honestly think he'll be able to handle that kind of stuff. But in terms of he's very brash. He says what he thinks, which is just not the way you should be. I don't care who you are. You shouldn't say what you think. You should have somewhat of a filter. And it'll just be interesting to see how that dynamic works. They have completely embraced anybody. They brought in Kareem Hunt. You know, Baker Mayfield isn't a criminal or anything, but he's got a bad rep as a personality, and he has been arrested. So they brought in OBJ, who, like I said, he hasn't done anything illegal, but he has kind of a bad reputation as a teammate, being really emotional. And they brought their draft pick Greedy Williams, kind of was questioned in interviews and has been, claimed to be kind of a head case. They're just willing to bring in any kind of personality, and I'm all for second chances, but I think you only bring in one or two of those guys. And this is a young team where they don't have an established veteran. They don't have Joe Thomas anymore, who was that rock of the franchise. And that is where I believe their weakness is the offensive line. I think one of their biggest X factors this year is shout out to the offensive linemen. So Chukwuma was earlier. Austin Corbett was their number one pick in the second round. Not this draft, but the draft before. He didn't play last year, but he's penciled in to be a starting guard, and they expect big things out of the offensive guard out of the University of Nevada. So I think he's a big X factor, as well as Larry Ogunjobi, their defensive tackle, who's an absolute beast. He's just a bowling ball. And he had, let me see here, I got it down, 5.5 sacks last year from defensive tackle position, which is really incredible.
Mm-hmm.
They picked up Olivier Vernon, and I think Ogunjobi is going to be your guy to look out for. He's an up-and-coming defensive tackle.
Yeah, man, I don't think offensive linemen get the credit they deserve ever. You know what I mean? There's always success within these franchises, and nobody really wants to talk about the offensive line. That's one thing I'm really proud of, like just being a Steelers fan. You know, I think our offensive line has consistently been solid, and I really like the guys we have on our O line. But
Really?
yeah, the Cleveland Browns, man, on week 8 they're going to be getting Kareem Hunt back. They got Baker, Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham, David Njoku, who I'm not rooting for the Browns, but I like David Njoku, and
He's
Nick
fun.
Chubb. Yeah, he's a cool guy. Like I know him. And on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, Denzel Ward had a great rookie season. Myles Garrett's Myles Garrett. It's Freddie Kitchens' first year as a coach, so we'll see how that goes. They finished 5-3 after Hugh Jackson got fired. I mean, I don't know, man. They finished above average in several categories. You know, rush yards, pass yards. They were 14th in each of those. They put up 22 a game, which was 20th in the league, and they had a +7 turnover ratio, which that's becoming more and more of a stat that I like to look at. Like I said, being a Steelers fan, seeing that -11, it's like, damn, that directly just impacts everything. You know what I mean? Giving people second opportunities, it's massive. And they logged 37 sacks. So what if the one thing they need to be able to do going into 2019 is close out more close games, like losing against the Raiders. And there was a couple games last year where they lost real close ones. But if they can learn to close out those games, they can become an elite threat. You know, they were 3 to 4 wins away from winning the division this year, and they loaded up on some good guys this year. So I think the Cleveland Browns are in a good spot. Honestly, I see why people have them as the favorite. On paper, they have a lot of talent on their team. So they look tough, man. They look tough. Moving on to the fourth and final team in the AFC North. Got the Cincinnati Bengals, real threat out here. They're 17th in points per game. They score 23 a game, 205 pass yards a game. They're 24th in that. And they average 105 rush yards a game with Joe Mixon, who at one point compared himself to Le'Veon Bell. So, what do you think about the Cincinnati Bengals, Nick?
Well, I think the Bungles are in trouble. I don't think they're that talented, but here's some encouragement. Next year, Justin Herbert out of Oregon and Tua Tagovailoa out of Alabama will be there, and maybe they can get one of them. As for Joe Mixon, I think he's the man.
Yeah.
And I think that if their offensive linemen don't keep getting injured or retiring, first-round pick Jonah Williams just went down. He'll be out for the season, which is a big hit for them.
The whole team's injured. Andy, it seems like Dalton misses. It seems like the last 3 years, Dalton doesn't finish the season.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me. And AJ Green don't finish the season. And Tyler Eifert hasn't been able to finish the season. You know, it just seems like they're constantly hit with injuries.
Eifert's always hurt, which is really too bad. He's very talented.
Yeah.
But I think Joe Mixon is better than Le'Veon Bell. I think Joe Mixon's the man. I really do. He is a guy who came out of Oklahoma, who had a huge off-the-field incident. There's a video. It wasn't domestic violence, but he assaulted a woman, and it's a disgusting video. And he paid for it. He was kicked off the team in Oklahoma and dropped in the draft. But ever since, just in terms of on the football field, he is extremely talented and hasn't had any problems since. So hopefully it was just this one fluky thing. But in terms of the Bengals, there's not a lot of talent. I looked at their X factors, and quite honestly, they don't have any on offense. AJ Green's, he's a stud.
He's awesome. When he's healthy, he actually is, I think, really, really a talented wide receiver.
Oh, so good. But there are some exciting guys on defense. I really like Sam Hubbard, defensive end at Ohio State. Last year as a rookie, he had 6 sacks in 10 games. I think he is really technical. He's long, athletic, and he's not going to blow up, just truck guys like Khalil Mack. He's not going to speed rush around the edge really quick like Von Miller, but he's just real technical, kind of like TJ Watt, a little bit like Joey Bosa. And I think he's got upside because of his hand usage and just the way he is able to come around the edge with so much technique and finesse. And then William Jackson, the third cornerback out of Houston, long, rangy, 4.3 guy at the combine. I think this is his breakout year. I think he's going to be one of these shutdown corners that we talk about, mid-season as a big bright spot for the Bengals, who, quite honestly, I had trouble finding 3 wins for them going through their schedule.
Yeah. Hey, man, I think it'd be really cool to do a podcast about fit on players in certain teams, because we talk about Le'Veon Bell and him going to the Jets. I'd like to talk about that, and even like AB going to the Raiders or Zadarius Smith going to the Packers. I think that'd be a fun podcast to do. But yeah,
definitely
with the Bengals, I just don't think they're competitive enough. I don't think they're quite there. They're too injury prone. They just don't have the talent. I honestly think when AJ Green's healthy and Andy Dalton's healthy, they're actually not like a tier 1 team by any means or tier 2 team, but I think they can still play competitively. They can still run with some teams, but it just never shapes out to be like that, so we don't get to see it. But
exactly.
Yeah, man, I can see why people got Cleveland number 1 on this. I'm gonna be a homer and I'm taking the Steelers. You know what I mean, winning this division, but it's gonna be really tough this year. It's gonna be a great season. The Ravens, I think, are a little overrated, but we'll see what happens. But do you have anything else you want to say, man?
No, I think we just about covered it. I think the Steelers and the Browns are neck and neck. The non-division games kind of fell the Browns' way, so they have kind of an advantage there. But in terms of division games, I think them and the Steelers are going to be hovering right around 10, 11 wins. I don't think Baltimore has a chance to win the division, and I don't think they're a wild card team either.
Right. I
Really
totally agree with you. I think people are too high on them.
Yeah, I'll be shocked if Lamar's the guy. He makes me nervous. He really struggles to throw the ball. I'm really fascinated in what they're going to do offensively. They're going to have to be creative. But yeah, I think it's the Browns and the Steelers. I think the Ravens are not there, and the Bengals are waiting for the draft so they can get their next quarterback.
Next couple drafts. But yeah, man. Hey, we're gonna preview a couple more divisions. Probably. What, you want to do the NFC North next?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool, man. All right. So the next podcast we're gonna do the NFC North, and hopefully in some point in the next couple weeks we'll do one with recent free agents and fits and stuff like that. But
definitely.
Anyways, everybody, appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nick. Our social medias down there under Nick. Yeah. But all right, man. Take care. We'll see you later.
See you, man.